Please begin seated. I'm sitting in a modified hero's position, just where I've got a couple blocks underneath myself. And the emphasis on today's practice is slow bow. And particularly what's advantageous about slow bow is that you have an opportunity to work at the nuances, the particular precise details of bowspring. And that's one of the joys that I experienced with bowspring itself, was there's this new technique to do everything, and it's very precise, and you have to pay total attention to it. And if you don't, then you just get lost, and that can sometimes frustrate some people. But on the flip side, it can really dive people in who want that, instead of the broad strokes like the Van Gogh, you want more of the pointillism, the fine details. So prepare to nerd out a little bit, and we'll jump right into it. So sit up tall, float your arms forward in front of you, and then touch the tips of your fingers together so that every joint in your fingers bends just a little bit. So it's actually the fingernails that are touching. And the one caveat of this is if you have beautiful long fingernails, if you haven't cut your fingernails for 2 months for some reason, it could be a little bit dangerous. But move your hands forward so that your arms make more of a circle, kind of like a basketball rim in front of you. I noticed that there aren't very many basketball rims at parks anymore. They literally removed the rims. And begin to push your fingertips into each other. And as you push the hands into each other, there's an inherent strength that you create through your arms, especially the inner rim of the arms. Push the fingers into each other, but press your elbows out. Broaden through your rib cage and lift through the crown of your head. Think of your hands being on a shelf that you could pull down on to actually get a further lift and feel a tone in your belly. And then 3 cycles of breath here, just in this full lifted position. Deep breath in and exhale out. Again, breathe all the way in and all the way out. And last one. And then open your eyes, keep your chin lifted, float your arms forward and wide in front of you, and keep your fingers slightly curled, kind of like they're palming a basketball or a volleyball if you have smaller hands, or a grapefruit if you have even smaller hands. And then just allow your rib cage to move side to side as you sway your arms side to side, a little bit up, a little bit down, just what's often referred to as just swaying seaweed. So just moving your body. So a little unorthodox, but we'll call it more natural in the sense of just an animal movement for a stretch. And then lean forward and touch your fingers down. I'm just on blocks, so I'm going to move them off to the sides. And then position your way into all fours pose. And then the subtlety of bowspring begins just here in all fours, and precisely even just contrary to how I used to teach, which was to drop the rib cage down so the shoulder blades came onto the back, and then scoop the tailbone under, pull the navel in to flatten the back. And bowspring is actually the complete opposite of that. So it's hard to wrap your head around. It was especially hard to say the opposite of what I said for so many years. So instead, push the arms straight, drop the belly lower, push your knees out to the side, and have your toes pointed back behind you, but pull the toes forward towards your knees so the front of your ankles lift. And then move your hips back so that you can rise up onto your left fingertips. And then the point of dome hands here is not to weight bear, but to push against the floor to lift the rib cage up. As you push down, push the hands away from each other and tilt your right ear towards your right shoulder as you move your hips back. And then now, keeping the lift of your rib cage, lift your left hand, cup the back of your head and hug your elbow in for ecstasy arm position, left arm. Push your head back into your hand. Pull the hand so that the head is moving forward and to the side as you drop your left hip back and arch through your side body. Then move back to center and just being precise even in the way you place your hands. So starting with dome hand and then bringing your hand bright to the floor, curling the fingers so that the hand stays active. And then rise up onto your right fingertip. So not to weight bear, not to be on the finger pads where you, some of us, if we've had a pretty good Friday night, you have to go in to the station to get your fingerprints. So the fingertips, so your nails, and then push down, lift your rib cage up, push the hands away from each other, push your knees away from each other. So feel tone, feel strength through the whole body as you then arc and tilt your left ear to your left shoulder. Stay, or you can lift your hand and cup the back of your head, tilting your ear, hugging your elbow in, push your head back into your hand, lift your chin, push your knees out, and full side body stretch. And you can even move a little bit where you inhale, move your rib cage forward, and exhale, move the hips back. And then come back to center, touch the hands, fingertips first, and then bright to the floor. Then tuck your toes under and lift your knees to hover into bear position. Actively push down with the hands. Push the knees energetically out to the side. Push your feet to the side. Lift your chin so that you look forward. An option here, a little bit more level 1 is just stay as you are. Maybe 1.5, moving towards level 2, is to rise onto left fingertips or even lift the hand and cup the back of your head. And then lower your hand before lifting the second hand, right hand fingertips, and then cup the back of your head right. And then hand down, knees down, and then move your knees back with your toes pointed. And so you can rise onto fingertips on both hands. And when I first learned this, I was like, there's no way you can't do that. And you might be saying that yourself right now. So the secret is you have to push the floor away from you so your rib cage gets lifted. Even though I'm leaning forward, the weight, the strength is still primarily in the legs. Even though my feet are lifted, it's over the top of the shin. So push the knees out to the side, and then from there slowly rise up and go into globe hands position. Here in globe hands position, push your elbows out to the side. Think of your hands being on a shelf. Pull down on that shelf and lift up tall. And then cup the back of your head with both hands. Point your elbows forward and arc over to the left for a side body stretch. What's nice with bowspring is there aren't any rules. You could come back up and then lean over to the side. You can just stay leaning over the side, or you can even hold the outside of your right elbow. Gently nudge the elbow down as you push back up into the elbow. Press your head back into your hand, move your hips back, push your knees out to the side. Feel the strength of your glutes, and from that strength, lift the elbow up high and lean back as you arc. And then back to center, just reach the arms in front of you. Again, the seaweed sway, you could even curl your fingers into a soft fist position. And then switch sides, cup the back of your head and arc over to the right. You can come up and over. The nice thing about being on the knees is you can take some of the flexibility that your knees offer when you're standing in this pose out. So it's just the torso doing the side bend, and again, modify as you see fit. I actually really like holding the outside of the elbow. There are other versions holding the outside of the thigh, but gently nudge the elbow down if you're doing that. Resist back, lift the left side of the rib cage, lift your chin, keep your hips moving back, push your knees out, lean back, use the strength of your legs, lift the elbow up high. So much to remember, mind blown. And then back to center, reach the arms forward in front of you, and then touch the hands down. So you can go fingertips and then hands bright. Tuck your toes under and then lift the knees a bit higher for crouching cat position. And crouching cat is pretty similar to bear pose. It's just the knees aren't necessarily hovering. And then bend your knees, push your arms straight, lift your chin. So differences between downward facing dog to crouching cat is that the arms are in more of the forward plane, as opposed to alongside the ears. So it's a little bit more of a therapeutic position for the arms, and we'll call it functional as well. And then the emphasis is on keeping a bend to the knees so you can get an arch in the low back while also pushing the arm straight and rounding slightly into your upper back. And then just adding a little bit extra heat by lifting a leg. Move your right foot a little closer to the left and lift your left leg out to the side, open leg position. Pull your knee forward as you move your hips back. Option to rise up onto fingertips on the left hand, not to weight bear, just to stabilize so it puts more strain on the right arm. Strain is good. Strain is what builds strength. So don't think that strain's a bad thing. And then left hand down, left foot down beside the right, and then switch sides. Right leg out to the side, rise onto your right fingertips, pull your knee forward, move your hips back, lift your chin. I'm just noticing that Bowls of Love joined us. Boy, I don't know what that is, but it sounds great. Okay, and then lower your foot down. Spring your legs, step or hop forward to the front of your space, and then just rise up, hands to your knees in recovery position. So push your knees forward to move the tops of your thighs back so that you can create the little arch in your low back. What often happens is there's a misinterpretation that bowspring is just arching your back. It's arching your low back. And then at the same time, tuck your chin in, round and broaden through your upper back so that you accentuate the curves of your spine. So it's a curvy practice. And then reach your arms forward in front of you. Join your hands together. Bend your elbows and place your thumbs to the crown of your head. Super simple here. It's just push your head up into your thumbs as you pull down energetically with your hands. So lift up from the center of your belly, so the rib cage lifts up, but then at the same time drop your hips down. So it's really subtle. Average person is like, this isn't doing anything. When I do it, I'm just shaking and sweating profusely. So lift up into the resistance of your hands, and at the same time drop your hips down. Think of scuba diving and having a weighted belt pulling you down as you lift up and resist that. And then now on your next inhale, lean it back slightly, and then exhale, look forward, and do that 2 more times. So inhale, and then exhale, and 1 more, and then back to center. Lean to your right foot and lift your left leg in front of you. Hold your knee with both hands. Bend your standing leg a little bit. And the emphasis of just keeping a slight bend to your knees is when your knees are bent, it just puts a bit of slack for your hamstrings and allows you to tilt your pelvis forward and back. So there's time and place to tilt your pelvis in different ways. In terms of the active position, I'm a believer that the pelvis should be tilted forward, what's called an anterior tilt, so the opposite of tucking under. So with your knee bent, can you do that here? It's a little trickier with one leg than two. And then just before the second side, lower your foot down and then just feel the difference where you tuck under and then what is often called sticking your butt back, but it's the whole pelvis. So you can move the pelvis as a unit. I'll show with the block. So you can tuck under just using the movement of the pelvis, and then you can also tilt forward. Again, nothing else in the body moves. It's a little easier when the knees are bent. Switching legs. Lift your right leg, hold on to your knee with both hands, and then move your butt back, and then tuck under. So it's for sure more challenging on one leg. And then just feel how you feel. I used to tell people how they felt, and that didn't always go well for me. I would have been a very poor psychiatrist. This is how you should feel. But it is important just to experiment and notice, because I do know a lot of people that feel comforted in the tucked under position because it's what you're used to. And sometimes the challenge with being in the untucked position is that you're more open, you're more exposed, and that can be frightening for some. So then just back to center, and then just the proof on the tucked versus untucked. Bend your knees, tuck under all the way, and then get ready for a jump. And I wouldn't recommend jumping very high. And then the opposite, tilt your pelvis forward so your butt goes back, you get an arch in your low back, knees bent, and then jump. And it's a lot easier to jump. Go into globe hands again as you did. Lean to your right foot, lift your left leg up, tilt forward, swing your leg back, but point your toes so that you can bring the top of your foot down. Move your weight back, lower your left knee down, and it's more the top of the shin, not necessarily the knee itself. Pull the back foot forward so the front of your ankle lifts, and you're literally holding onto your mat. Lift your front heel. And then doing this in globe hands, I think, is almost level 3. It's a little easier to go hands out wide. Lift your front foot and balance for one shin balance. It's the same idea as you just did, except now balancing only on your shin. And in terms of just a posture that was like, whoa, a decade of yoga, never once did I ever balance on my shin. And then now with bowspring, there's opportunities all the time. It was like, whoa, 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 this is fun, this is different. Okay, then lower your foot almost at the top right corner of your mat. Just arc over to the left, bring your left hand down, and then your choice either to make a fist to the top of your head as you then arc over to the side, or you can cup the back of your head. And those are pretty flexible. You can start to lean it back almost like Wild Thing. So Alicia was messaging that she was on at the beginning of class here, and she's someone who can literally flip almost like upper body wheel from this position. I'm happy just staying here. Hi. And doing baby mantis. We'll save full-grown mantis for another day. And as you arc to the side, tilt your ear to your shoulder, lift the right side rib cage up, move your hips back so it gets to a point where the left hand can be light. Some folks even hold the front knee with the left hand and use that as leverage to spin up. That's where I might hold the head just to give a bit more support for the head. Oh, that feels good. Okay, and then turn back to center. Reach the arms forward. Tuck the back toes, spring load your legs, move your hips back, and then push off of your back foot to step forward. Just pausing here at the top, curl the fingers into soft fists and join the hands together. This position is called seed hands. When they come together, it's 2 seeds, but my Hulk Hogan action figure, it's just the Hulkster. Hulkamania, brother. But push the hands into each other, push the hands forward. Think even being underneath a shelf. If you have something like that at home, a tall table that you can push up against, and then feel how that can broaden your upper back as you arch your low back. Lift your right leg, swing your leg back, tilt forward, pause. Go slow. No rush. Take your time. Bring the top of your foot down, and then your knee down. Pull the back foot forward. You can hear my foot gripping in. Move your hips back. Again, you can challenge yourself. I like to go wide with the hands to counterbalance. And then lift the front foot. Whoa. Whoa. We sometimes have challenges of who can last the longest. I've only been beaten by a couple of people in my classes. We're usually up around the 4 or 5 minute mark. Usually whoever wins the first side doesn't take part in the second side because it's fairly demanding. So that could be your extra homework after this. Time yourself, see how long. If you can get past 5 minutes, you might have the world record, because who else has even tried? Nobody. Okay, then foot to the front, left corner of your mat, arms forward, sweeping arch over to the right. Bring your hand down. Again, you can make almost like a rooster top on the top of your head. What's nice is I got the wall there. I could mimic that with the wall. Push, move your hips back. Way to move the hips back is to push the left foot forward to move the hips back. Arch, lift up through the left side rib cage, tilt your ear to your shoulder. Maybe get to a point where the hips are far enough back that you could hold on to your knee and add the spinning twist, twisting from right to left, lifting your rib cage up. Push your head back into your hand, lift your chin, breathe deep. Okay, and then slowly rise up to center. Bring your foot back, tuck your back toes like you're holding on to something. Pull yourself, pull the hands down to pull yourself up, we'll say. And then rise up, curl the fingers together, bring two seeds together. Push in, push your elbows up, breathe deep, and then take a wide stance, whichever direction is easiest for you. And then bend your knees in this wide stance, move your hips back, and then tilt forward and reach your arms forward, pause. Push the hands into each other so your arms stay strong. Keep your knees bent and lift your glutes up. Look forward, breathe deeply. Pause, and then from here, tilting forward, either go fingertips. I've got a block here. Sometimes I will literally practice with 2 blocks and make it even easier for myself. Part of that's just because I really like Lego and building things. But here, begin to push your legs straighter while keeping a slight arch in your low back. So it's not a flat back, it's actually even further into the concave shape of the low back. So there's an indentation. So it's not just flat, it's even past flat. Push your legs straighter for the low back. The upper back, though, is rounded. And then if you're a little bit more flexible, then go lower, lower. You can go hands flat. You can even lean forward and rise onto your tiptoes, up to you. My legs go into full shake and bake mode, even here, just in that halfway lift position. Okay, then eventually, switch the blocks, rise up, hands to the knees. Turn your back foot, the left foot in, or just whatever, one foot. And then other foot forward, and then go forearm to your thigh. Setting up for side coil position. I didn't really give a left or right, so you're all adults, I hope. And then cup the back of your head. Hug your elbow in, move your hips back, and then twist towards the side, so away from the floor. Bend your back knee, move your hips back. And then, just for extra fun, take your lower hand, cup the back of your head, push off of your foot, lift it into the air, whoa, and then step back. And do that 4 more times. Oh man, 4. So that's 2. So we're going for 5 total. And then 3. 4. And then 5. And then rise up to stand and hold opposite elbows. So there's a lot of positions in bowspring that are quite functional. So this position, holding the elbows, just replaces eagle arms position. And it's functional because it's how we grant wishes. But curl your fingers around your elbows and push your elbows out to the sides so that you can feel the broadening of your rib cage. Of course, you have to be up on a pretty high shelf to be able to have your elbows on top of something to pull down on to lift your rib cage up. But I'll face the camera here, and then knees bent, hips back without moving the lower body, so below the waist. just twist to your left, close your eyes. And it's hard to twist very far without adding the whole body. So keeping the hips fixed, twisting just the torso. I only twist maybe 30 degrees, getting close to 40, but not very far. So just taking out the idea that you have to twist behind you. That's just my knees and hips sacrificing the alignment. Come back to center. Grant wishes the other way. So just switch your hand position, push the elbows out, lift your chin, deep breath in. Keep your left hip back as you twist towards the right. And close your eyes and feel more instead of look more. And then back to center. Reach the arms in front and then bring the hands low. The advantage of having the hands low a lot in bowspring as well is just to give the traps a bit of a relief. And part of that is because a lot of yoga poses are always arms straight up like that. Down dog, warrior one, crescent position, tree pose, it's always arms up, arms up, arms up. And in general, unless we're riding a roller coaster, woo, or got a question in class, I got a question, I got 2 questions. We don't actually put our arms up in the air that often functionally, but we do keep our hands lower a lot. So keeping the arms low, toning them in a way that's more functional than what might actually wear you out and tire you out. Push the hands into each other, lean to your left foot, or just, we'll say other foot, because I wasn't clear the first side, and then just step the other foot back. So it's the same setup, except this time have your feet out to the sides. I just wanted to show off my back side. Look at my back. So the difference between tucking under and rounding the spine, I actually get to a point where it's hard for me to show a rounded low back just because I've got developed glutes and my body literally changed from bowspring. So I don't quite go to the same level of roundedness that I used to. But with the knees bent, turn the knees in slightly so that you can enhance the curve of your low back in. You could even put your thumb to the top of your sacrum, so that's above the butt crack, and move that in and up, and then look forward. And then instead of pull-up bar arms, chin-up bar arms is a really great way. Think of holding on to something. It could even be this, and pull down to lift up. Option to lift your heels. Previous video, you've seen that this is not a stable thing to hold on to. Careful of Hanuman dropping on my head, but pull down, lift up through the rib cage, sink a little lower, keep the heels hovering, pause, hold, and then hands to the knees, heels down, and then turn your back foot in, and then front foot forward, forearm to the side, and then we'll go into side coil second side. So it could be hand to the top of the head, moving the rib cage forward, twisting towards the side wall, or you can cup the back of your head. Super nice as well. And then moving with your body, moving forward, and then moving back. Moving forward, moving back. I promised 5 times. Cup the back of your head. Oh my gosh, I can see my backside on the iPad here. Am I that sweaty? Push off your back foot, pull your knee forward. There is no heat. And then step your foot back. That's another thing about bowspring. 2, you are working hard the whole time. So you get the stretch and the strength. 3, no free ride. 4, and then one more, 5. And then come all the way up. And then lower your right foot, reach back, grab hold of your left foot for dancer's pose. And different styles of yoga do different things. Iyengar yoga would be usually outside of foot, and then you have your hand like that, and you kick back and tilt. Bikram is big toe side of the foot, and then you turn your chest the whole way to the side and get lower. Some stay high. Bowspring, You're even offered the opportunity to hold over the toes, so in between the inside and the outside, and then pull the foot down. In this case, it like kind of moves the knee forward, but then gives you the advantage of moving the hips back. And then because of that, it gives more freedom to hinge at the hips, to tap the floor and come back up. So versus if you were in a tucked under position, you can't really do that. So pulling the knee forward, moving the hips back, and then just bobbing up and down. Bobby is my middle name. You can just bob. I think that's a great name, Bob. 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 Okay, extra fun. If you want to play around, you can go up to a wall if you want, but bring your hands down and then just switch from foot to foot a couple times. Let's go. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. And then eventually back up to stand, balancing on your left foot. Hold your right foot behind you. Reach your left arm forward. So I'm holding over the toe, so not inside, not outside, right in the middle, Goldilocks. And then pull the foot down so the knee starts to move forward to move the hips back. And then from there, tilt forward, tap, and then come back up. And just do that a few more times. Okay, and then touch the hands down, and then just switch from foot to foot to foot to foot. Eventually have the right foot down and rise up. This won't be a long position, it's more just prep for falcon pose. So classic figure 4 shape is trying to open the knee out to the side. You can even see it with my body. Try to get my arm out of the way. If I open the knee out to the side, I actually will just round. So instead, keep the knee up and then move the butt back. You can even support that by grabbing your butt, lifting it up. So the knee comes in first, get the shape of the pelvis and the low back, and then open the knee out to the side. That feels great for me. And it's less about just the position of the leg at the sacrifice of the rest of the body. That's called body awareness. And then just switch to the other side. And I'm less flexible on this side, so I especially notice it. So knee in, move the hips back, pull the butt up, and then start to open the knee out to the side. And it isolates things because I'm less flexible here to the outside of the hip. And that is a deep, deep stretch. Deep stretch. Okay, because this is prepping right for falcon pose, we'll just bring the foot down, hands down, hop it back to crouching cat. And then the transition for falcon is to bring your left leg forward, cross it over your right knee, just at the base of the thigh, and then bring your shin down. I like to point the toes, move the hips back. So it's not about getting the shin parallel to the front edge of the mat. Instead, it's more about emphasizing the arch in the low back and then pushing the hands down and pulling the rib cage forward. So think of the hip staying fixed and then pull the rib cage forward as you drop down onto your elbows and pause. Doing this on my own, I would often use blocks just to be a bit higher up. Can offer that slight roundedness in the upper back, and then I can emphasize the arch in the low back as I push the knees away. I will often practice this with my head, the top of my head at the wall, so I'd be turned 90 degrees to the right. I especially do that when no one else is watching. If I filmed that, it would look like I'm just giving myself a timeout, which based on my behavior would be pretty well all the time. Okay, nothing super fancy, just switch to the other side. So you can just push it back to crouching cat. and then switch the legs. Interestingly, if you do down dog with 2 blocks under your hands, it's called crouching cat, because you can't actually do down dog with the arms alongside your ears when you're on blocks. You actually intuitively just go into a more stable position. I think that's interesting. Interesting. I think bowspring can sometimes ruffle the cages and rattle the feathers around for a lot of people, especially when you're used to something being a certain way, like this pose being tucked under. And if I tuck under as much as I can here, this just feels terrible. Feels like I just put Clorox bleach in my mouth, which I haven't done. I didn't take any advice to do that. So instead, arching the low back, rounding in the upper back, pull the rib cage forward, keep your chin lifted, steady as she goes. Okay, and then move any blocks aside. Have your hands pretty wide as the mat, maybe even a little wider, and turn them in just a little bit. And then move your knees back a little further than your hips. So when you lift your feet, you're on the base of your thigh bone and not your kneecap, your patella. Then bend your elbows and lower down halfway. Pause, slow, and then push back up. We'll do 5 total. So just pause, slow, and then come back up. And then again, pause, slow, come back up. And again. And then 6 more. No, 1 more, sorry. 1 more. And then up. Okay, then lower your hips down and then put your elbows under your shoulders and touch the tips of your fingers together for globe hands. And there's a really neat training. It's quite complementary to bowspring. It's called foundations training. If anyone has ever looked it up, I suggest Googling it or such, because it offers similar principles as bowspring. There's a bit difference, but I think some of the differences go in foundations corner, and some are a little bit better, in my opinion, with bowspring. But they call this globe hand position the sphere of tension. And then I learned this position from someone doing a foundations class at the local Lululemon. So pause here, push down with the elbows, push down with the knees, and then rise up. And it's pretty simple. It's just on your elbows, on your knees, push the tips of your fingers together, push the knees out to the side, keep your chin lifted, hold strong, way to go, dig deep. Okay, and then rise back up onto your hands, tuck your toes under, lift your knees, and turn your knees over to the left, reach your right arm long. Lying on your side body, you can even push your head into your arm to lift the side of your waist and the side ribs up. And then we'll add the focus of a stretch on this one. So move your hips back, lift your knee up, and then hold the back of your thigh and extend your legs straighter. So as you can see, my leg's going away from my upper body. That's as straight as I'm going to get it. If you're flexible, start to take the leg more and more over you in that direction. Not for dramatic purposes. That's real shaking going on. This guy's going through some work. And then left hand down, lift your way up, turn your knees over to the right, lie onto your left side. Move the hips back so that you get the arch in the low back. Tuck the chin in, breathe into your upper back, and then lift your knee. You could even prop your head up if that feels a bit more comfortable. Hold the underside of your thigh and extend your legs straighter. Woo! Okay, then roll over onto your back. And another pose like pigeon in terms of a big game changer because it's just doing things a little different. Another one is bridge. So lift your hips up, but then actually literally have a block that you can put underneath your hips. And it could be just like a 2 centimeter book, something that's fairly solid, but just a little bit higher than the ground itself. And then drop your hips down onto that so your feet can get light and your belly lifts. And then classic bridge is arms in the back plane of the body. Both bring bridge as more of a chin-up bar position. So elbows forward and then bring your knee in, either knee, and then extend the leg up. And that is like remarkably different than just a regular bridge for me in terms of the emphasis of the stretch. And then if I want more power, I can just use the foot on the floor, the left foot pushing down and pulling back to get even stronger, to make the pose more intense. Okay, and then lower your foot, bring your knee in, and then extend your leg up, pull your right foot, base foot down and back towards your hips as you extend the lifted leg up. It's a big thing to think about is let go of the idea of what it's supposed to look like and instead focus on what it feels like. Does it make you feel better? Are you just doing the pose because everyone else is doing the pose and it's kind of hurting you, but everyone else is doing it, so you got to do it? Okay, and then release, and then move your block away from you. Now, cup your knees with the palms of your hands. That's freedom pose. And then there's a play on freedom pose, which is very similar to happy baby. So it's just open the knees a little wider, but then hold the back side of your thighs and then extend your legs straighter there. And the test here is, can you slide one hand under your low back? So the low back is slightly lifted. So you have what is called a lumbar lordosis, which would be a great name for a wrestler. We've got lumbar lordosis coming into the ring. But really, I think a major cause of back problems, especially for men, as being a man who had a flat low back, was getting a slight arch in my back was so beneficial from me. It was instantaneous in terms of the feeling, the difference when I got it. Okay, and then lower your feet. Drop your knees over to the right. I actually like to keep the left hand in chin-up bar position as I go for the twist, and let the legs drop all the way and allow the left shoulder to lift, and then just turn the chest. Keep the elbow in. If the elbow's out to the side, it's a lot harder. And this can be a literal twist where you twist your organs, detoxify your quarantine diet, and then lift your knees up and drop your knees over to the left. Or it can be more figurative, where you're just twisting to release any negative, condescending viewpoints that you have of yourself, limiting ideas. Let go of the things that are holding you back from your true potential. And then final pose, just lie on your back. You're also welcome to stay in a seated position. Just gonna go there myself. And just slight changes in bowspring. So classical Shavasana usually is arms alongside you, palms face up. I started to bring the palms face down a bit more. Even just in terms of understanding what is neutral alignment for the arms to hang on the body. And it may be palms face behind you is more anatomical neutral. And then another option is just to give yourself a hug where you hold opposite shoulders. And in just that position, you broaden through your upper back and make more space behind you to support you in the floor. To literally state that you have your own back. You're here to support yourself. That's what a mindfulness practice is. That no one knows how you feel. Namaste.